Hero was my first class I ever mained in MapleStory, back when the furthest I've gotten into pre-Big Bang was around level 100 on my Crusader. Just want to mention that so y'all know I have a bias for this class right off the bat. Back then, Hero used to be very non-mobile and slow, but nowadays, especially after their Destiny rework, they're one of the most fun classes to just whiz around maps with for both grinding and bossing. As usual, I'm only going to be focusing on the skills heroes use all the way through to 5th job onward, so gonna skip over their main mobbing attacks since those get replaced every subsequent job advancement. At 1st job, it's just the same as every other Explorer Warrior. Fairly standard basic stuff, similar to most other classes. A couple of defensive passives, a flash jump, and 2 skills that work in tandem with each other. Upward charge is an up jump attack that sends you upwards, and leap attack can only be used in the air and is like a mini stomp. You can either bind this to a button and click it, or just click down, left, or right, and your attack key to just fly down and stomp at your landing location. Also, upward charge can be used with up and the attack key, almost forgot to mention that. 2nd job immediately gives hero their own identity to stick out from every other class with combo attack. It's a toggle, and when you use it, while attacking enemies you have a chance to gain combo orbs. You get more later, but for now you get up to 5, and each one gives 2 attack. You don't have to maintain it or anything, it just stays forever and never really depletes anymore, so you just have a cool effect around your character. Spirit Blade gives you and everyone in your party flat attack, and just for yourself, it reduces your damage taken and gives you a chunk of damage reflect. Lastly, 2nd job also gives these passives like every other class, and another attack that gives hero a bit more mobility, Flash Blade. You hold any direction you want, click the skill, and you dash to whatever enemy is in that direction, or roughly within the range of said direction. 4-second cooldown, and you can use it right after an up jump or flash jump for extra mobility distance to get around maps. The skill is really fun. 3rd job gives an upgrade to combo attack that ups each combo orb to give 5% final damage, as well as a chance to give you an orb when you take damage, some more healthy passives, one that gives you extra crit rate and final damage to debuffed enemies, and some more range with Beam Blade. Similar to Flash Blade, hold any direction, click the skill, and instead of you flying to enemies, you send a beam in that direction at enemies. Very good ranged skill, 7-second cooldown. Scarring Sword is a buff that gives enemies a debuff when you attack them, that lowers their accuracy and attack power for 20 seconds. And lastly, Rush is a skill that pushes you, and whatever enemies are in your way, forward. 4th job gets some more passives, and another huge upgrade to combo attack. This doubles your final damage per combo orb, now gives you 10 orbs instead of 5, and some more weapon mastery. So with max combo orbs, you get 100% final damage, and a flat 20 weapon attack. Magic Crash removes some buffs from enemies, and stops them from casting other buffs on them while they have the Magic Crash debuff on them. Useful if you know when certain bosses are about to cast weapon cancel or damage reflect, but otherwise this skill nowadays isn't anything too special, especially since pretty much all bosses, Lotus and Damien onward, don't rely on casting cancel or reflect. It's useful for like Pink Bean and Arcarium though. Puncture is going to be one of your main bossing skills for grinding, since it has a massive hitbox and does more damage against normal enemies, but it also gives them a damage over time debuff that makes them take more damage from crits. Party members up this bonus by 10% too. The last 2 skills at 4th are Raging Blow, which is a great mobbing and bossing skill. At max combo orbs, it transforms into an even better version, with extra damage and upping the final attack to be a guaranteed crit, to the final 2 to be guaranteed crits. And finally, Enrage is a toggle that boosts your final and crit damage, and knocks your mobbing skills down by 1/3, capping at 3 targets hit being the lowest it goes. Always have this on for bossing, but you'll want to keep it off while grinding. Also the obvious Maple Warrior and Heroes will every other class gets. Heroes hyper skills start off strong with Rising Rage, even though the animation is of a sword falling, not rising, but 10-second cooldown, huge hitbox, does a ton of damage in lines. Epic Adventure is the silly old little skill all Explorer classes get. 1 minute uptime, 1 minute cooldown, 10% damage to you and all other Explorers in your party. You know the drill by now most likely. Cry Valhalla gives you a super stance for 30 seconds, meaning nothing knocks you around to any capacity. It also instantly charges all your combo orbs up to max, and gives a bunch of stats, both offensive and defensive. While it's active, you also occasionally get extra damage, which happens only up to 12 times per cast of the skill, 2-minute cooldown. Hyper passives are fairly solved and figured out, with there being one tiny difference for both bossing and grinding. For both, you'll absolutely want Advanced Combo Attack Reinforce, Advanced Final Attack Opportunity, and Raging Blow Reinforce and Extra Strike. For bossing, you'll want Advanced Combo Attack Boss Rush, and for grinding, you'll want Raging Blow Spread to hit more enemies. But really, if you're like me and just use Puncture for mobbing on everything everywhere anyways, I'd say it's worth it to just go for the boss hypers, since you're not missing out on much, except 2 extra mobs hit per Raging Blow. That's kind of whatever. 5th job, you get pretty much everything for bossing. It's like Nexon is begging you to boss once you're 200. World Reaver is an iframe that cuts the screen and hits a bunch of enemies, 25-second cooldown, and it's the only iframe hero gets. The actual iframe from the moment you use the skill is 1.25 seconds. Sword Illusion is a 2-part attack that does an initial slash, and immediately follows that up with a ton of cuts that do a whole bunch of lines. It also gives you a buff for 8 seconds, equivalent to that of 6 combo orbs' final damage, I believe. The math for it is a bit tricky for me to word concisely, but know it's a big final damage increase for 8 seconds with a 30-second cooldown. Burning Soul Blade, also known as BSB, is a big sword that follows you around for a while, and it too also charges your combo orbs up to max upon use. It attacks nearby enemies every second when you attack, and if you use the skill while holding down, it stays in place and attacks everything that comes within its range. It does a little less damage when placed down, but according to the Big Hero document, people argue whether it's more worth it to have it in place or following you. Apparently it can sometimes boil down to your ping or connection to the game as to whether which one is more worth it over the other, so I'll just say if you want to be safest, place it down. 2-minute cooldown. Lastly, Instinctual Combo, also known as IC, is a massive damage dealing skill that lasts for 20 seconds and beefs up all your combo orbs to now give more final damage, boss damage, and percent attack. When attacking, it also activates a skill called Tear in Space, which does a bunch of damage 3 times every time it activates. It's weird that there's less documentation about Hero's most valuable burst skill versus their funny little sword. For shared warrior skills, Blitz Shield and Impenetrable Skin are both good for defensive things, but the one you'll want across every warrior is Weapon Aura. Every 5 seconds when you attack, you send out a beam blade-like wave forward that does pretty good damage. 3 minutes per charge, the duration of the buff goes up 2 seconds per level, and it can have up to 2 charges. So this is how you make Hero easy. For bossing, make sure you always have your Puncture debuff on the boss at all times. One of your main combos you'll want to maintain is Sword Illusion into Rising Rage. Also just using Rising Rage whenever it's off cooldown, because it's big damage every 10 seconds. You can use about 1 to 2 Rising Rages in between waiting for the cooldown of Sword Illusion. I say 1 to 2 because it misaligns by like 2 seconds for that second one. If the boss knocks you away, or you just escape the boss's vicinity quickly for whatever reason, close the gap by both tossing a beam blade out at them and using Flash Blade to get yourself back in the action, and tear 'em up! Try to avoid using World Reaver too often in bosses that have dedicated one-shots that can kill you, and instead save it for defensive purposes. It's up often, but you'll want it most when you need it, so save it unless you're comfortable with the risks and knowledge of when a boss is about to one-shot you. I mentioned this earlier, but don't forget to toggle in Rage on when bossing, also when an elite mob or elite boss spawns in a map. Just more free damage at the cost of less mobs hit. For training, use Jump and Puncture. Puncture's vertical hitbox will usually hit the platforms above you, and jumping prevents the animation lag you'd normally get while grounded using this skill, so you have a little more control over your character. Dashing to enemies and tossing out beam blades helps clean up maps and reach some platforms that otherwise would normally take a little extra effort to reach, through climbing a rope or something. Having extra attack speed you'll want to prioritize too, since otherwise Hero is a very slow attacking class without it. Monster Part Green Pot, decent speed infusion node, and attack speed inner ability. Which ties into this next part. For inner ability, you'll want attack speed, crit rate, and boss damage. If you use a one-handed weapon, you don't need attack speed IA, but since you'll be more than likely heavily bossing on a hero, get boss damage in some capacity. Abnormal monster status extra damage is nice too, since Hero's always debuffing enemies. Crit rate is nice if you need an extra chunk of it and don't want to take up a whole link skill for it. Other settles include things like flat attack, flat strength, meso and drop rate if you like those, or my personal favorite, cooldown skip. I'm a weirdo that likes this line because for me it's satisfying when Flashblade and Beamblade reset, and I can just sometimes occasionally spam it up at Damien or Lucid. I still think my hero's inner ability is literally perfect. I love having that cooldown skip, fight me about it. Link skills are about the same as any other class. If you have other Explorer Warriors, might as well stack their links on for some extra healing when your health falls below a certain percentage. Otherwise, you'll want these for grinding, things like Lara, Aran, Mercedes, and Evan, and these for bossing, like the Demons, Arc, Beast Tamer, Explorer Magicians, and such. For Trinodes, there's 2 sets you'll want. For bossing, Cry Valhalla, Raging Blow, and Final Attack. For training, Rising Rage, Puncture, and either Flash or Beam Blade, whichever you prefer. I personally like Beam Blade more, and the Hero Discord lists it under their perfect try. For weapon setups, heroes can either use swords or axes, in either one-handed or two-handed of both. The go-to answer for most heroes, especially on reboot, is using two-handed axe, since you get slightly more damage out of it as a passive. But two-handed sword is fine too if you like how those look more. One-handed sword or axe plus a shield has very little benefit nowadays, since defense isn't much of a major worry, and you don't get much out of having a shield over just a two-handed with a secondary. Even on Reg server, the best you're going to get with a one-handed plus shield is if you have the ever-elusive Terminus Defender that's scrolled in Starforced well enough to be close to comparing, and even then it's a very minimal increase, like 4 to 6% I think. My recommendation is choose whichever two-handed you like more, sword or axe, but one-handed is fine enough if you're willing to sacrifice a chunk of damage for it. For burst/BA, buff up, make sure Enrage is toggled on, and place your sword down, or summon it normally. Pop Epic Adventure, Weapon Aura, AB Link, and Will Skill if you have any of those too. Use Puncture for the debuff, and then Cry Valhalla. Start the BA here with Sword Illusion into Rising Rage. Then, use Instinctual combo, and keep spamming Raging Blow and Rising Rage whenever it's off cooldown, alongside Sword Illusion. Shorten down further, toggle passives, buff up, place down BSB, Puncture, Cry Valhalla, Sword Illusion, Rising Rage, IC, Raging Blow spam. Pretty much just remember to use IC when everything else is set up, and then Raging Blow until burst is done. As always, thanks to the Hero Discord for letting me lurk in their server, and having a pretty in-depth Google Doc on Hero. Thanks to Nexon for making my first main in class I still enjoy a lot to this very day. And thank you, the viewer, for watching my guide. I love this class and I'm glad they're still a fun and overall pretty good class nowadays, but I feel like I might have gotten something wrong in this video. I tried cross-referencing my own personal experiences of Hero with the big Hero document as best I could, so if I got anything wrong, I apologize, I tried my best. But anyways, I hope this guide helped you figure out Hero if you were confused on anything, and if there's other videos you want to see me do in the future, let me know in the comments. That's all. Wait, that's not all quite yet. I lied. My 6-star sweepstakes box finally arrived. Let's see what's inside. Oh, I got some bubble wrap? The cute little orange mushroom keycap from MapleFest. Neat. A lanyard with a bunch of maple creatures adorning it. Very cute. I love this thing the most, honestly. A Yeti phone grip phone loop thing? Kinda cute too. What's this, a keychain? Oh, it's a button of... Does this mean I have to do a Phantom guide at some point, or can I wait until their inevitable rework? Last thing in this box is this cute little Yeti tote bag. Not a bad assortment of things I got from a runner-up prize. Okay, now, that's all.